In today's iCave Dave, the UK government wants to break the iPhone. Gaming on a Mac, could it be getting real? In a world of AirDrop and iCloud, who uses cables for data transfer anyway? Apple's Disney ambitions and when will the Vision Pro finally arrive? I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours, like the video, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. And as you can probably tell from the background, we didn't do a video yesterday because I was reorganising the office and it is still an absolute hole. But we're going to make a video anyway, and this one is kind of easy for me because this is just your questions that we're answering, so let's get straight into it. The blob asks, iCave answers, I heard the UK Parliament is debating if Apple should be forced to downgrade the security for FaceTime and iMessage. Apple said they will stop providing those services if they do in the UK. Have you seen anything about this, Dave? So yes, I have seen this. It is a little bit disturbing because I really don't want to lose iMessage and FaceTime. FaceTime is like key for anyone with a family with grandparents that don't live right next door to you for keeping in touch and stuff. So yeah, it's a bit of an issue. Really, this is kind of coming down to exactly what Apple has faced in the States already, with the FBI and the government asking for backdoors into Apple security, and it's basically so that Apple is able to provide data for law enforcement. And it's obviously a very tricky topic because it kind of has really good arguments on both sides, but Apple will not compromise their security in terms of making the security weaker for everyone just to appease one government. So it makes far more sense for them to simply remove certain features for certain markets if that's what needs to happen. So for example, Apple in China will disallow certain apps from the App Store. However, even though China has insisted on Apple's data for Chinese users being stored on the Chinese mainland, the Chinese government still has no access to that data. It just happens to be in servers there, but they don't have a key to it. That's kind of the way that Apple's done it in the past. Now, what Apple is likely to do here is lobby the UK government, and probably the uproar that would come from UK users. And let's be honest, the Conservative Party, who are currently in government in the UK, not anyone's favourite, I don't think. I don't think there's anyone that's thinking, yeah, these guys are doing a cracking job right now. So it's the UK government basically trying to make themselves less popular than they already are, which is quite a feat. Two Kinetics asks, iCave answers, on AAA gaming on the Mac, Baldurs Gate 3 is the hot topic in gaming right now, and it is getting a native Apple Silicon release. Is this a good sign for gaming's future on the Mac? Baldurs Gate 3 is currently on Steam in early access for Mac, and with an estimated September 6th full release. Now, I checked this out because it is already on my wishlist on Steam, but Steam's great because you can put stuff on your wishlist and then they will tell you when it's on sale, and that's when I will buy it, because I'm not paying $50 to get myself a game because I'm cheap. Mainly, I do think that games are very, very highly priced. I know there's a lot of development that goes into them, but they are a huge industry, and it just, like, for me, I'm probably not going to play it that much, so it makes a lot more sense for me to just kind of pick it up when it's a bit cheaper, so I can try it out, so I can potentially talk about it on the channel, but I'm not going to be throwing $50 at it. So, more importantly, I checked out the specs for this, and if you want to play it on basic, basic setup on a Mac, you can do that with anything from like a 2016 MacBook Pro upwards. If you want to play it on Ultra, you need to have like a 2019 MacBook Pro or newer. However, with Apple Silicon, the M1 will run it in kind of medium settings with the base 8 gigs of RAM, and it will run it in high to ultra with a 16 gigabyte M1, not an M1 Pro, not an M1 Max. Apparently that's all it needs, which just kind of pushes how good Apple Silicon is. And yes, this is something that is going to make a big difference. September the 6th, we probably still won't have macOS Sonoma, so we won't have that game mode just yet. But I think once that comes as well, that's also going to be positive. These are all good things for the Mac. It's good that we are getting more game studios, and assuming that more people buy this, and I would encourage people to go out and pay their money for it. If game developers see that Mac users now want games and that they're willing to pay for games, that's going to help the industry to go, yeah, it's worth us actually porting stuff. So yeah, definitely a step in the right direction, and I will be playing it. Probably just will wait for it to be on sale, because I know I'm not going to play it that much because I'm not really much of a gamer. It's Dave here. I've completely forgot to tell you I'm going to be live streaming tonight, so like 10 o'clock UK time, come and join us. We're going to talk all the week's Apple news and anything else that you want to talk about, so see me there. Next question comes from Team Kinetics as well, and it asks, I gave answers on the subject of USB-C and Thunderbolt, who is using a cable to transfer large files on an iPhone? Between AirDrop, iCloud and the other wireless and cloud-based services, does anyone actually use a cable to transfer files to and from an iPhone? Genuine question, as I haven't used the cable for transfer for data to or from the iPhone since before 2019 and wonder who does. So I agree, like with these videos, I shoot them on my iPhone and then they are airdropped to my Mac. For quite a while I was actually using continuity camera, so I didn't even have to do that. It was recording directly onto the Mac wirelessly, which was great. However, if you are doing any sort of 4K video, if you are doing any sort of ProRes video, these files are enormous. So I was talking to Dave from Dave Talking Tech, I think his name. I really should know the name of the channel, but I'll put it down in the on the screen for you. We were doing a bit of a live stream on Wednesday, and he was saying that he had tried to do some videos on his iPhone 14 Pro, I think it was, because he went and got the 1 terabyte version, and he was saying just for like a sort of 10-minute video that he was making, which means probably about 20 minutes of footage, it was in the 50 to 60 gigs range, and that is where AirDrop is probably going to start to fall down a little bit when you've got one massive file that you're trying to transfer in one go. And the same with cloud services, because I mean things like Dropbox, unless you're using Dropbox Pro or you're paying for the paid services, you've got a couple of gigs absolute maximum, unless you've referred all the people in the world to Dropbox. So I think there is an argument for it, and there is certainly cases. And also remember that anyone that's using a Windows laptop with an iPhone, which is probably a lot more people than are using a Mac with an iPhone, don't have the luxury of things like AirDrop, so they would have to use probably a USB-C cable. And this USB-C is going to be hopefully much faster, because Lightning has still been, although there is a USB 3 speed version of it, in general it's still been limited to USB 2 speeds, which is abysmal. Team Kinetics asks, I gave answers. Rumours are flying around that Disney might sell off some of its intellectual properties. Do you think that Apple could buy something like Lucasfilm or Marvel to bolster their entertainment offering? I don't think that Disney will be selling off things like Lucasfilm or Marvel. From what I gather, it looks like they're trying to offload things like ABC and ESPN and Disney XD, which are their kind of linear, standardized, old school TV offerings, which makes a lot of sense. But then I think the prospect is actually that the whole of the Walt Disney Company, without those parts, which are loss-making at the minute, I believe, would probably be up for sale as a whole. So there is a possibility that Apple could buy the whole of Disney, which would include parks, that would include all of the intellectual property behind it, that would include all of their movie division. That would be great. Also their back catalogue, which would make Disney Plus / Apple TV Plus a hell of a juggernaut. Probably a more expensive juggernaut, but definitely doable. One thing that I was looking at was the fact that Disney as a company is worth about $160 billion at the minute. Obviously Apple is in the sort of 2.79 trillion range, but in 2019 people were commenting that if Apple was to spin off the AirPods business as its own business, it would be 32 in the Fortune 500 because it was worth 175 billion. So AirPods is a more valuable business than Disney. Just wrap your head around that. MRNH asks, I gave answers. Thoughts on the release timeline of Vision Pro in the US? Will there be a special January 2024 event or a more typical spring event? Now, I don't think this is going to be ready for January. I'll be completely honest with you. I think there are so many engineering issues with this. I would be surprised if it actually lands in people's hands before maybe May. I think there could be an event in March. They may well push the general event back to April, which would be when we get the Mac, also when we would get the official kind of launch dates for Vision Pro. Goes on pre-order in April. I believe Apple is only going to be selling it through their own online portals and in Apple stores. They're expecting to sell maybe one of these a day in each Apple store, which is very low volumes, but there will be like a custom fitting that happens whether you do that at home for an online purchase using your iPhone to scan your face so that you can get the correct fitting eye shield, the light shield, or if you go to an Apple store, and then there'll be an Apple store colleague who will literally be there specifically, I believe, for Vision Pro fittings. I think it's probably only going to start in some Apple stores as well in the US, probably East Coast and West Coast, probably not a great deal in like Texas, the kind of middle of the country. I think it's going to be like New York, LA, that might be kind of it to begin with, and then they'll roll it out gradually over time into more stores. But yeah, this is going to be a slow rollout. It's not going to be like a big landing. Obviously, there are going to be a bunch of YouTubers who get access to this, probably on a very, very lone basis to make their videos. And I think they might even have to go to an Apple store to get fitted as well. So maybe there's going to be an event where they bring everyone together and like issue them out in person. I don't know, but I do think we're not going to be looking at the big rollouts, the big queues outside Apple stores. That's not what we're going to be getting with this. $3,500, I still maintain, is not an overprice, because it is around the starting price of a 16-inch M1 Max or M2 Max MacBook Pro. So it's not insane numbers when we're talking in those terms, but it is still a lot more than an iPhone. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you've got a question for a future show, hashtag #ICaveAnswers down in the comment section. Thank you to the new Patreons over here, and thank you so much for watching. If you want to join the Patreons and help to support me buying ramen when it gets to the end of the month, iCaveDave.com/Patreon. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell.